introduced to the Filipino Women's Club of Salinas by my dear friend, now retired Judge Efren Iglesias, who many of you know, in 2014. It is truly an honor for me to be here this afternoon to celebrate the 95th anniversary of the Filipino Women's Club of Salinas and to honor its rich legacy of community service on the Central Coast. In 1934, my father was born, and he was raised by his Polish immigrant family in Flint, Michigan. My father would often speak to us about the struggles of the immigrant families at that time and the negative attitudes and stereotyping that prevailed not only against Polish immigrants, but immigrants essentially from anywhere. Although their experiences back in Michigan certainly paled in comparison to the experience of our Filipino community here on the other side of the country in the 1930s, he shared his experience so that my sister and I would both understand that the privileges and opportunities that we had were not shared by everyone. My mother was a fourth-generation Californian, having been based in San Francisco and Stockton for those 4 generations. And as I was preparing to speak to you this afternoon, I realized that her family may well have eaten produce from our rich Salinas Valley during a time when many of our Filipino American workers, perhaps even maybe some of your relatives, were victims of racism and exploitation as they cultivated and harvested that food. That is certainly a sobering aspect to our history. So I say that to express that I join in celebrating the Filipino Women's Club of Salinas' 95 years of accomplishments and service with a great sense of humility and profound respect. The essence of the Filipino Women's Club is embodied in your motto of faith, worth, courage, and service. And as anniversaries are a time for reflection, and this year's theme is past, present, and future, I'd like to take just a moment to reflect on the impact throughout its history of the Filipino Women's Club of Salinas, which I was a little surprised to learn was actually started by a man. Luis Agudo, who also founded the publication The Philippines Mail in 1930, one of the longest running Filipino newspapers in the entire United States, was described in a 1935 article as, quote, "the brain trust of the local Filipino community, a legal, spiritual, political, social, and educational uplifter." And if the Luis Agudo was the father of the Filipino Women's Club of Salinas, this club quickly became a force through one of its first presidents, Paulina Morales, as evidenced by an article pertaining to a dinner that this club hosted for labor leaders of the Salinas Valley in 1933. As you know, by that time, several of the Filipino men had become successful labor contractors and were working with the growers. The article stated, quote, "This year, the club plans to launch an intensive drive for funds to enable the organization to carry out its welfare work in Salinas and vicinities, and to make this campaign effective and fruitful of good results, the women enlisted the cooperation of all labor leaders in the valley," unquote. Well, those wise leaders quickly and unequivocally pledged their support. Paulina Morales is described as, quote, "the able and never to give up president of the active Filipino Women's Club. Her untiring efforts placed her club among the most respected," unquote. I have to say, she sounds like quite a few of the women who are in this room this afternoon. Throughout the 1930s, the Filipino Women's Club was not only a force in Monterey County, but was known throughout this state for its devotion to helping Filipinos who were in need of food, clothing, and medical care. And to place this just perhaps a little more in context, recall that in 1930, when this club was formed, we were in the middle of a depression. Recall also that in January of 1930, the same year that this club was formed, there were 5 days of violent, deadly riots just north of here in Watsonville that targeted specifically our Filipino community and resulted in the murder of 22-year-old Fermin Tobero, who was shot through the heart as he was hiding in a closet. The 1930s were also a difficult time for this community due to the restrictive immigration policies and other discriminatory laws. Fortunately, California has begun to recognize the impact of this history and to acknowledge that. On September the 4th of 2011, California apologized to the Filipinos and Filipino Americans in a resolution authored by then Assembly member Luis Alejo. In 2020, the city of Watsonville officially apologized, and in 2023, the Monterey County Board of Supervisors issued an apology for the riots that occurred in Watsonville. This history, as well as so much more, is documented in Watsonville is in the Heart, which is a partnership of UCSC and the Tobero Project. This new community archive and research initiative is online and preserves the stories of migration, labor, and community building and formation of the first wave of Filipino immigrants to arrive here at the beginning of the 20th century, focusing on the pioneering families that came to the Central Coast at this time. I encourage you to explore it. It is beautifully and very professionally presented, and it includes art, oral histories, as well as poetry, and many, many photos from that era. I'll also say that I was quite inspired because clearly the people who have expended the effort to put together Watsonville is in the Heart are young people. And it's so good to see young people take such an interest in and pride in their heritage and want to make sure that that heritage is preserved so that it will be known for generations to come. At a time when their community was suffering terrible injustices, however, the women of this club never failed to respond to an appeal for aid, and to this day are the very first to help when they see one in need. At the same time, the members of the Filipino Women's Club of Salinas have always known how to have fun. Besides recounting noble and serious pursuits of the Filipino Women's Club of Salinas, many articles in the Philippines Mail social columns describe events hosted by this club, which, in addition to recognizing people for their individual contributions to the community and their service, always involve food and concluded, as you will be this afternoon, and as you have already started doing, with dancing. The Filipino Women's Club also promoted rich culture, and the rich culture of its members and its heritage. Paulina Morales organized and taught a Filipino singing and dancing youth group, very similar to what we have seen this afternoon already, that helped to perpetuate the Filipino heritage through folk songs and performed at community events that introduced this rich culture to a broader audience. I don't think Paulina Morales ever slept. I don't think that Susan Arribas ever sleeps. As the decades have passed, the Filipino Women's Club of Salinas has built on this foundation. Whether entertaining the soldiers at Fort Ord and Camp Roberts during World War II with musical programs, donating 2,000 books to the University of Philadelphia Library after it was devastated during that same war, supporting our veterans, raising money for the victims of disasters such as the 1991 eruption at Mount Pinatubo, supporting the mature members of our community at the Salinas Senior Center, and the safety of our youth at Sofa for Grad Nights. The members of the Filipino Women's Club of Salinas have been rolling up their sleeves and doing the hard work it takes to make a difference. One of, if not the most enduring aspect of this club's legacy is its scholarship program that is focused on our future. And of course, by that, I do mean our youth. Since President Estela Ben presented the first Filipino Women's Club of Salinas scholarship to Salvador Raimundo in 1949, this club has awarded scholarships each year to deserving high school seniors of Filipino American descent. I didn't have the names of the recipients of these scholarships to research what they've achieved and communicated to our entire society because of your belief in and support of them. But I could not help but wonder if they may include people like our current California Attorney General, Rob Bonta, or someone who is very important in my life and career, our recently retired Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court, Tani Cantil-Sacauye. To sum up, the Filipino Women's Club of Salinas is a bedrock of our community, and at a time when there is still hardship and division in this world, the work that the Filipino Women's Club continues to do to promote understanding, friendliness, and higher education through living your values of faith, worth, courage, and service is needed more than ever. Thank you for enriching our community during the past 95 years. The fruits of your efforts will continue to resonate for many years and generations to come. And congratulations to the new members of your leadership team, as well as those of you, like Susan, who will continue to lead this organization as you write together the next chapter of the Filipino Women's Club of Salinas. Adhering to your values of faith, worth, courage, and service that are your very core, you will, like Alina Morales, Estela Ben, Edlinda Marais, Clarita Gontag, Diosa Avellana, Luisa Josie, and so many more, write another chapter of which you are going to be very, very proud. Thank you.